You can drink water all day and still feel tired, heavy, or foggy, especially after 55. If you've ever wondered why the same hydration advice that worked years ago suddenly doesn't seem to help anymore, you're not imagining it. As we age, the body handles fluids very differently, and simply drinking more isn't always the answer. The truth is, hydration isn't just about what's in your glass. It's about how your body moves, absorbs, and uses that fluid throughout the day. And that's where most people get confused and frustrated. Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, but still don't feel properly hydrated? If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Share your experience in the comments, because in a moment we're going to look at the one part of hydration most people completely overlook, and it changes everything. You can drink water all day and still feel tired, heavy, or foggy. And for many people over 55, that quiet frustration starts to feel normal. You follow the advice you've heard for years. Keep a bottle nearby, take bigger glasses, remind yourself to drink more, and yet something still feels off. The energy doesn't return. The stiffness lingers. The clarity you expect never quite shows up. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not doing anything wrong. What often gets missed in everyday health conversations is that the body you have today is not the same body you had 20 or 30 years ago. Aging changes how fluids move, how signals are sent, and how efficiently the body uses what you give it. That doesn't mean hydration stops mattering. It means the old one-size-fits-all advice starts to fall short. Hydration becomes less about volume and more about coordination. Less about forcing intake and more about how the body handles it. As we get older, several subtle shifts happen at once. Total body water naturally decreases. Tissues become a bit less flexible. The systems that move fluids around, including circulation and lymph flow, don't work quite as effortlessly as they once did. At the same time, the internal signals that tell us we're thirsty become quieter and less reliable. So even when you're trying to do the right thing, the feedback loop isn't as clear as it used to be. That's why so many people feel like they're chasing hydration without ever catching up. This is where it helps to rethink hydration as a whole body process rather than a drinking challenge. Water doesn't magically arrive at every cell just because it enters your mouth. It has to be absorbed, transported, balanced, and retained. And those steps depend on things like circulation, movement, breathing, posture, and mineral balance. Factors that rarely get mentioned when hydration is reduced to a number of glasses per day. One of the most overlooked pieces of this puzzle is circulation. Fluid movement relies on motion inside the body. Blood flow, lymph flow, and even subtle muscle activity all help guide fluids where they're needed. When movement decreases or tissues stiffen, fluids can pool or pass through too quickly without being used effectively. That's why sensations like heaviness in the legs, puffiness, or general sluggishness become more common with age. It's not just about how much you drink. It's about how well your internal pathways are working. Gentle, everyday movement plays a surprisingly important role here. Not exercise in the intense gym-based sense, but simple actions that wake up the body's natural pumping systems. When muscles contract and relax, they help push fluids along. When breathing becomes deeper and more intentional, it supports circulation in the chest and abdomen. When posture improves, it removes unnecessary compression from blood vessels and nerves. These are small things, but over time, they influence how efficiently fluids move through the body. For many older adults, the idea of adding movement can feel intimidating. There's a common assumption that if you can't do vigorous workouts, movement doesn't really count. But the body responds to consistency far more than intensity. Small, comfortable movements done regularly can support circulation without strain. They remind the body how to move fluids upward, inward, and across tissues instead of letting them stagnate. Breathing is another quiet factor that rarely gets attention in hydration discussions. Deep, relaxed breathing gently moves the diaphragm, which plays a role in assisting fluid movement in the torso. Shallow breathing, often linked to stress or prolonged sitting, reduces that natural internal motion. Over time, this can affect how fluids circulate through areas involved in digestion and absorption. Simply becoming aware of your breath, allowing it to slow and deepen at intervals throughout the day, can support the body in ways that feel subtle but meaningful. Posture matters too. When the shoulders round forward and the head drifts ahead of the body, It can create tension and compression in the neck and upper chest. That can influence blood flow and contribute to sensations like stiffness, pressure, or headaches that people sometimes attribute to dehydration alone. Gentle posture awareness helps open those pathways, making fluid movement more efficient without any dramatic effort. Alongside movement and circulation, there's another layer that often confuses people: minerals. Hydration isn't just about water. Minerals like sodium and potassium play a role in how fluids are distributed inside and outside cells. At a general public health level, these minerals help regulate balance. When they're out of sync, water may pass through the body quickly without being retained where it's needed. This is one reason plain water doesn't always feel satisfying or effective on its own. Over the years, minerals have been oversimplified in health conversations. They're often framed as something to fear or something to supplement aggressively, when in reality, balance and context matter most. For many people, everyday food choices influence mineral intake more than they realize. Whole foods naturally contain a mix of minerals that support normal fluid balance, while highly processed foods often disrupt that balance without offering much benefit. Understanding this relationship helps explain why hydration can feel different depending on what and how you eat, even when water intake stays the same. Another challenge that emerges with age is thirst itself. The body's thirst mechanism is controlled by sensors that detect changes in fluid concentration. As we get older, these sensors don't always respond as quickly or as strongly. That means the sensation of thirst may show up later than it used to, sometimes after mild dehydration has already set in. Add in modern distractions, busy routines, screens, medications that affect fluid balance, and it becomes easy to miss early cues altogether. This isn't a personal failure, it's a physiological shift. Many people wait to drink until they feel thirsty, not realizing that thirst is no longer a reliable early warning sign. By the time it appears, the body may already be playing catch-up. That's why hydration awareness often works better when it's built into gentle habits rather than reactive responses. Small, regular moments of attention throughout the day can support fluid balance without overwhelming the system. It's also worth acknowledging how daily life has changed. We spend more time sitting, we move less naturally. Climate-controlled environments reduce obvious sweating, even though fluid loss still happens through breathing and skin. All of this contributes to quiet, gradual dehydration that doesn't announce itself loudly. Instead, it shows up as low energy, difficulty concentrating, muscle discomfort, or a general sense that something feels off. When you step back and look at hydration through this wider lens, it becomes less about strict rules and more about rhythm. The goal isn't to force large amounts of water or follow rigid schedules. It's to support the body's ability to use fluids comfortably and consistently. That means pairing intake with gentle movement, paying attention to posture and breathing, and being mindful of overall balance rather than chasing numbers. A sustainable hydration routine is one that fits into real life. It doesn't demand perfection or constant monitoring. It allows flexibility while encouraging awareness. For some people, that looks like taking smaller sips more frequently. For others, it's about spacing fluids throughout the day instead of consuming large amounts at once. It might involve being more attentive during sedentary days, when fluid loss still occurs even without visible activity. What matters most is consistency without pressure. When hydration becomes something you work with rather than something you battle, the body often responds more positively. Energy levels stabilize, discomfort becomes easier to manage, and the sense of constantly falling behind begins to fade. If any of this resonates with you, take a moment to reflect on your own habits, not to judge them, but to notice them. When do you tend to drink? How does your body feel at different points in the day? Do certain routines make hydration feel easier or harder? Awareness is often the first step toward improvement, and it doesn't require drastic changes to be meaningful. If this perspective has been helpful, consider sharing your experience or thoughts in the comments. Many people are navigating the same questions quietly, and hearing different experiences can be reassuring. You can also like or share this video with someone who might benefit from a calmer, more realistic view of hydration and aging. And as we continue, there's more to explore about how small daily adjustments can support long-term comfort and clarity, sometimes in ways that feel surprisingly simple once you see the whole picture.